Ben McKee, Pastor Brown, Go Vols 24/7 here on campus on this beautiful Sunday morning following Tennessee's 9th practice of fall camp. Tennessee back in action following Friday's first scrimmage of camp. They had an off day yesterday, back to work today. They'll be back in action on Monday morning, tomorrow, off day on Tuesday, practice number 11 on Wednesday, and scrimmage number 2 on Thursday. In the meantime, we'll talk about today's practice because that's what we got to see 10 to 12 minutes of. First, let's go through roll call, our annual tradition from viewing practice. Anything stand out to you? I know the one that stood out to me was John Campbell. He was back out there.
He's working on the side.
Working on the side. I saw him out there also doing some tackle drills as well, so maybe a little bit of kind of easing him along in that sense. Dylan Sampson continues to work off to the side as well. That's probably the most noteworthy one because of who he is and what he means to this team. Tweaked his knee a little bit last week, and he's going to be perfectly fine. He's going to be okay, but they're obviously going to be very cautious with Dylan Sampson moving forward.
Yeah, Caleb Herring was another guy that was working on the side. Braylon Staley is still working on the side, the freshman wide receiver, but you look at some of the positions that were a little short-handed the other night in the stadium. Wide receiver, they had those guys back. Brew McCoy running routes, looking fine, looking normal. Dante Thornton was back out there. Mike Matthews, the freshman, the 5-star, he was back out there. And some of those guys have been practicing. Brew's been, I don't think he's, anything he's missed, they've been telling him not to do. So it's not like he's had any issues. It's just, and I think for some of these guys, they picked up something little and they're just kind of ramping them back up a little bit. So they got a couple days before the scrimmage, didn't scrimmage, and now they're back in it. A couple guys on the offensive line as well. Looked like Lance Hurd was doing everything fine. He had coming off a knee deal in the summer, but he was going in to do some pass rush stuff as we were leaving. So he looks fine. Andre Carrick was out there in drills. I didn't see him take a rep because I was trying to get a little bit of everything, but he's out there in uniform with the offensive line. Both the linebackers, the starting linebackers maybe were held out a little bit Friday night. They were back out there. Arion Carter was imploring his guys, even in the turnover circuit, to treat everything like a game rep. So, this was, I think there were, maybe 2 guys working inside and just a handful outside working to the side with strength coaches and trainers. So at this point of camp, they seem to be trying to manage this team along pretty well, and it seems to be pretty good in terms of the availability.
Yeah, and I think, moving into this new age of college football where you may play...
You can't just do 2-a-days every
No,
year. You can't kill your team and run them in the ground at this point of the year.
No, 14, 15, 16 hopeful games. You are only guaranteed 12, and some teams will still only play 12, but there are 12 teams that are going to play more than 12 games, and especially if you play a conference championship game.
You can play 17.
You can play 17. That's an NFL schedule. So if you're Tennessee, if you're a college coach, you have to be very smart in how you bring these guys along in fall camp, and I think that's what you're seeing.
Yeah, and that's what Josh Heupel said the other night when he was asked about some of the offensive linemen that weren't out there, because there's 3 guys that would be projected as starters right now that weren't out there, and he said NFL vets still get training camp, still get reps in training camp too. Scrimmage may have been a little bit more like a preseason game where you give maybe some more opportunities to some guys to try to build some depth, see where they're at this point in camp. But some of those guys need some work, and a lot of them were out there getting some work today.
Yeah, you made a great point to me that it's always good to see what drills each position is kind of going through. The practice after a scrimmage, that's usually indicative of what they did not do well in the scrimmage. What did you notice about kind of different position groups going through different types of drills?
Well, the safeties did some run in the alley, so coming up on the edge and fitting a run. That was something I saw from them. Linebackers seemed to work mostly on coverage, some man stuff, some zone stuff. Tight ends spent 2 of the 3 periods we saw them blocking, 2-man sled, even some perimeter blocking. So some of those quick screens that Tennessee likes to throw. Sometimes there's tight ends out there and they got to block quicker DBs who, that's an easy place to maybe get a holding penalty, and maybe they had some of those in the scrimmage the other night. So I'm trying to think of the work the pass game a little bit, offensive line work the sleds. So usually, you can kind of tell what didn't maybe go well in the scrimmage based on what they come back the next practice and do, and that's some of the stuff that we saw.
Yeah, absolutely. Lastly, routes on air. Wasn't the cleanest edition of routes on air we've ever seen, but there were a couple of guys like Brew McCoy looking the part, moving around.
Yeah, they've got to throw some deep balls. We usually see a lot of underneath stuff, but they did air it out there at the end. Nico just missed Brew down the field, but then was able to connect with Chaz Nimrod. Probably his best throw was to Chris Browse on the other side, and I think Gaston Moore had a couple of nice throws as well to Dante Thornton and Caleb Webb. So still too many probably inaccurate throws and maybe some drops here and there that, when there's no defense out there, it should be automatic. But again, we always kind of talk about what routes on air looks like. They could be tearing it up right now during practice, during team periods. We don't know, but that's just what we saw this morning, and that's what we're sharing with you guys.
Yep, and we've got plenty of coverage of practice number 9 up at the site at GoVols247.com, and have plenty more content on the way over the next couple of days, including back here tomorrow morning for practice number 10 of camp. And Willie Martinez will speak afterwards. So for Patrick Brown, I'm Ben McKee.